Okay, team, we can stop the video and welcome. It is time for our program, and we want to welcome all of you who are stopping by to end your day with us. This beautiful MLK Day, where we have celebrated someone whose life and legacy was all about humanity and justice. I am Professor Neil Lester, and I want to welcome you to our annual event, the Vital Voices, What a Children's Story Taught Me About Humanity. So thank you. You're in the right place. Come in, take a seat, a virtual seat. As you are coming in and adjusting, please tell us in the chat where you are joining us from. And if you brought something to share, what it is you brought to share. And someone from our team will be keeping a record of who's signing up and who will be ordered in the sharing. You don't have to share. This is an invitation only. The share is 2 to 3 minutes, and we want to give people an opportunity who want to share. But before we get into the actual meat of our business here, I do want to acknowledge that Project Humanities, slide please, Rom. Project Humanities acknowledges that our institution, Arizona State University, is situated on ancestral lands of indigenous people, past, present, and future. We thank and honor the Native American tribes and sovereign nations of the Salt River Valley, including the Akama Otham, the Ankh Akama Otham, and Peepash nations, whose stewardship of the land and waterways allows us to be here now. We also know that land acknowledgements are not enough, so we are trying diligently to invest in community building and community sustaining with our Native American tribes. Thank you for being here. So, some of you have been out likely doing MLK service things. Others have been probably watching maybe some sporting games. But I'm glad that you're here because I know that there are also a number of people who have been kind of discombobulated by the fact that this day was also on another important day in our U.S. history. And I have watched people post the MLK verses and important things that have meant so much to you. And I want to sort of acknowledge what Charles Dickens did way back when he said, "This is the best of times and it was the worst of times at the same time." So, our opportunity this evening, for those who are in the evening time zones, to remind us that no matter what is going on in the world, there's a way in which we can still manifest our own humanity and proclaim that humanity and reclaim that humanity. This is not necessarily a therapy session, but I do hope that we are encouraged by the fact that there are people in community who are practicing and striving to be better based on these principles that we call Humanity 101. This is not a ministry. This is a faith in humanity where we practice compassion and empathy and forgiveness, integrity, kindness, respect, and self-reflection. Please go ahead and sign those. In fact, I'll ask my team member Vatzel to put that in the chat so that you can sign it now. There'll be another opportunity, but that's only if you can commit to these values. We are not defining these values for us, but we are looking at manifestations of these values in the stories that we will share tonight. For those who don't know, Project Humanities has been around for 13 years. And I and some other faculty members founded Project Humanities at a time when, much like this one today, where people thought, why would anybody do a degree in humanities? What kind of money can you make with that? And I was then a central administrator who decided to take a different approach to talking about humanities. Rather than trying to define what does it mean to be human, since I've only been human, I've never been a robot that I was aware of or anything but human, I thought, well, let's not try to define what it means to be human. Let's talk about how we are human. Thus, our Humanity 101, and thus our continued efforts to bring people together to do three things: to talk, to listen, and to connect. These things are not automatic, but the potential is there to make us better. And if we're better, then we can do better. So, again, this is not a lecture. I talk a lot, but this is not a lecture. And it's also not a panel. It really is about vital voices. Vital voices is about acknowledging that everybody who steps into this space, who enters this space, has something to say that is vital not only to them, but potentially to other people. So, again, it's a bit like an open mic, but it really is about sharing. And a little more context since George Floyd's murder in May 2020, Project Humanities has very intentionally connected these moments of sharing with diversity, but also with justice. And it is extremely fitting, I think, that we combine those two, humanity and justice, on MLK. We've been doing it for about 6 years now. And then the final thing before we actually get into our featured guest, I need to know if the featured guests have shown up. Are they in the audience? Erica and Jessica? Are they in the audience? Erica and Jessica? Okay, team members, can you work on getting Erica
Erica just joined. Her screen might be loading up. They're
okay, all
here.
right.
Yep.
Okay, not quite ready for that yet. Not quite ready for that slide yet, Rom. We have talked very specifically about the role of children when it comes to justice and humanity. And let me just remind people that our focus tonight is not on children's history, but rather on the role that children have played at the nexus of adult politics. What we were exposed to as children has determined who we are today. And I remind people just a little cursory glance at our U.S. history reminds us that children have always been involved in adult politics. You don't have to think very far to remember the civil rights movement and the marches when the Birmingham Dogs and Hoses and Bull Connor was all over the children who were marching so that their adults would not be fired from their jobs. We also can remember Ruby Bridges at age 6, who was the integrator of the public schools in New Orleans, or Emmett Till, or Trayvon Martin, or the 4 girls in the Birmingham bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church, or the Indian boarding schools, or the separation of children from parents, not only at the U.S. auction block, but also with our recent U.S. immigration policies. So the emphasis tonight is, what did a children's book or story teach you about humanity? We can also use a book or a story that taught us about inhumanity, because I think it's looking at inhumanity for many that we also see the possibilities of humanity. And I say the same thing in a new volume that I just edited on social justice. I don't know what justice is. What I can point out is what injustice is. And when we're addressing injustice and inhumanity, we are demonstrating and embodying justice and humanity. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The featured guest, and that just means that out of the big bucket of people we could have selected to give us a more in-depth conversation about their work as both artists of children's books, but also artists of children's books about difference. I've invited Erica Maxwell and her daughter Jessica Alexander to share with us about their experience writing this book as it aligns with our theme tonight of humanity. Next slide. Who are Jessica and Erica? Well, Erica is the proud mother of Jessica. Erica's on the right in the two-person picture on the left. She is the mother of Jessica and Ronald, in addition to being a first-time author. Erica is an active member of Chandler, Arizona community with over 25 years of experience in education. She served as the very first Associate Superintendent of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for Arizona's Department of Education. So we're very pleased to have Erica and Erica's daughter, Jessica, who is the subject of Beauty with a Birthmark, is a beauty with a birthmark and the main character of the book. She's an active teenager who enjoys time with family and friends while balancing academics and work. Jessica's looking forward to attending an HBCU to pursue a career in psychology. So if you'd please give a round of applause to Erica and Jessica, who will talk about their journey a bit and give us some insight into Beauty with a Birthmark. Thank you for joining us, Erica and Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Neil Lester and Project Humanities and Arizona State University Vital Voices for having us at this very important Vital Voices event today. We are excited to share our book. Things have changed. Jessica is no longer a teenager. She'll be 21 next month, which we're very excited about that. And again, we just appreciate the opportunity and talking about our journey with Beauty with a Birthmark and how it relates to humanity. So I don't know. I'll let Jessica, would you like to start? Or would you like me to start? I can start. Okay. So the Beauty with a Birthmark, Jessica has a birthmark on the right side of her face called nevus volta. When she was about 10 years old, we were going to a friend's soccer game. I was dropping her off, and as we were walking, we were talking, and she was saying how she hated her birthmark and that I should hate it as well. And so at that point in time, I really, it hurt my heart as a parent to hear her say that because, again, in my eyes, she's my beautiful daughter. The birthmark is just a part of who she is physically, but we really focus on the character, her character, right? And so at that point in time, dropped her off, and I then started looking for some books about birthmarks, children's books that I could share with her. And so at that time, there were two books I found, children's books. One was the main character was an animal, and then the other one, the main character was a white male. And so I wanted her to see herself. So I realized I needed to create it. So therefore, Beauty with a Birthmark was born. Worked on it for years, started writing it, and I did write it in poetic form and really began to think about how I could put it in such a way where she would appreciate her birthmark as a part of who she is, and other children could appreciate their different types of marks. So it's not just about her birthmark, it's about freckles, moles, other types of birthmarks. It's about acceptance and beauty and affirmations, because throughout the book, the affirmation, I am a beauty with a birthmark. And then all the things that she's been able to do and achieve with birthmarks, with her birthmark. And through this process, I have realized many things in terms of, as a parent, some of the pains that she had because of her birthmark and some of the teasing. It really has really made me reflect and thought about maybe some things I should have done differently in terms of I didn't realize how it was impacting her in her life. So, but we've shared the book. We went to Johannesburg a couple years ago, back in October of 2023, to share our book with students. And it's been a journey, and it's been enlightening, reflective. So many people are able to relate. I had a lady that's 40, she was probably in her 60s when I was at a vending event, and she was just very silent for a while and just kept flipping through the book. And her son, who was in his 40s, she said, I think this is what my son has. And no one had never given it a name. And so we had a great discussion. It's led to great discussions, people talking about their birthmarks, somebody sharing about how they had one on their leg and or made sure they wore shorts to cover it up. And so just really sharing the human side of having a birthmark in terms of how it really impacts people, both positively and negatively. So that's been a big part of our journey. And again, I've reflected as a parent. There's some things that I maybe should have done differently, and she has shared some things in terms of how it has impacted her that I did not realize as she was going through it. So I'll stop there. Now let Jessica talk.
Hi, my name is Jessica. Yes, I've had a birthmark on the right side of my face since I was born. It does cover up like my whole half, so literally 50% of my face is gonna be taken up by this birthmark. With having it has come with many trials and tribulations. Thankfully, it's come to the point where it's more good than bad. As far as relating to humanity and inhumanity, is really just what comes with being part of the community and the environment that you're in at the moment, especially like the part of life and stage of life that you're in as well. um Definitely easy to decipher between both sides of humanity and inhumanity. Definitely have treatment of both. Inhumanity comes with, the bullying and the teasing that actually happens pretty often. Um, Especially for me because my what I was being bullied for and teased for is so visible. Um, but it also brought together like new friends and people that finally accept me for who I am. So it definitely shows both sides of the table. It's a great thing to have. I love it now. It's one of my favorite features, if not the favorite. But yeah, it definitely just shows you both sides to, I mean, just the product of different lives around you, and yeah.
Mhm. Oh, thank you, Jessica. And I
Thank
want to say
you.
that Jessica and Erica are writing a an essay on their experience, and they talked about how emotional this is to sort of to talk about it, but also to sort of recognize that in all that emotion comes this sense of ownership and triumph. And I think you both talked about that. And I started the show, the run of shows, saying it was the best of times and the worst of times at the same time. And I think on some level, people may be experiencing that today, that here we are celebrating the life and legacy of somebody who was so committed to justice for all people, and yet there is a counter narrative that is also circulating in real time that demonstrates everything but that. And I know that people get discouraged. And Jessica, I think yours is a story, and Erica, yours is a story that sort of reminds us that people really don't have to give up. And it's not about being so resilient. It's not about tough. It's not about leaning into what you're feeling, but it really is about not allowing others' definitions of you to define you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is absolutely accurate. And in the book, I made sure and we made sure we really focused on all the things. She's a human being. She grew up, she was a cheerleader, she was in track. Things that every kid can maybe relate to some type of activity. It talks about her gracing the cover of a magazine or a book, which she is now on the cover of a book.
Okay.
And those, so again, humanizing
Right.
that although she has a birthmark,
Right.
she still does has a full life and enjoys activities that many do others people and kids may enjoy as well, and including traveling as well. So
Mhm.
made that a part of the book. And the essay, ooh, that essay. This
Wait,
is
we're not
my
going to make that about the essay now. That was
It's
just a
that
side
we're not
note.
making it about the essay, but it also helped me reflect
Oh, okay. All right.
on parts of the book. And there was Jessica's section was the last section, and um, I did have to get up at a point after reading it. because one of her sentences says, "My birthmark damaged me." And so that, as again, as a parent, humanized even further for me and her about the impact of that, and how we really we judge people a lot on the way they look. And that is, Martin Luther King, on this day, as we commemorate him and all he stood for, it is about the character, right? The outside is just a part of who we are. It's not all of who we are. And also in the book, there's a part that says it's not like a cold, it's not something you can catch. So, because we know kids can be cruel, adults can be cruel, but helping them understand that this is not, if you're friends with her, if you touch her, if you hug her, it's not something that's going to rub off on you. So it's educational as well. Also touching on the STEM and science, because her dermatologist, Dr. Tony Stockton, who has a thriving practice in Awatuki, is the only person who has ever said to us, this is what it is. Nevus of Ota, gave it a name. Also, and if you want to talk about the other part that she really said when it comes to Nevus of Ota in your eyes, gave us valuable information that we had not had. I mean, and she was born with this, and for no one to have ever really taking the time to explain also is the big deal. And health equity, and then having a Black dermatologist who at one time was the only Black dermatologist in the state of Arizona.
Well, you're pointing out now how the world of children intersects with adult politics. You talked about being a parent not able to protect. For those who are not parents, we may have nieces, nephews, others, family members that we don't protect. But it's also about their character. And I hope that we remember that, because sometimes we think, oh, well, the bullying, that's a certain character. The bullying that comes from the pulpit, the bullying that becomes whoever has a position of power. Let's look at it in terms of their character too, and not necessarily a reflection on us. So I hope that's a King connection also. Too many people want to look at this King, the sort of sugar-coated, I said in another talk, the Santa Claus, without looking at, it's okay for Jessica to be who Jessica is. Let's look at Jessica and accept Jessica on her own terms. And if you're bullying, then that says more about you than it does about Jessica. That's where the King connections come in. And I don't know if that's necessarily just a lesson for children, but also a lesson for us grown-ups. Okay. Thank you. Did anybody have a quick question for Jessica and or Erica before we move into the first phase of the sharing? If you do, raise your hand and somebody will unmute you. If you have a question or observation for Jessica and, all right. And you're going to stay with us for a while, right, Jessica and Erica?
We will stay with you for a while, even though
Okay.
The Ohio State and Notre Dame are playing.
No shout outs now, because we got people here. We want people to stay focused.
Okay, we're going to stay focused.
Okay, all right. All right. Any questions or observations? Did any get asked in the chat? My team who's looking at the chat.
We look good.
Okay, very good. And Nayeli, can you? Okay, I see Jackie raising their hand. We do have books that we are giving out or have given out. Nayeli, can you comment on that before we go to Jackie?
Hi, everyone. So we are doing an Instagram and Facebook giveaway. We're giving 1 of 5 copies of the Beauty with a Birthmark. So if you can still participate, make sure that you follow us either if you have Facebook or Instagram, and you tag 2 friends in the comments, 2 or 3 friends in the comments, and we're announcing the winners tomorrow.
Okay.
There's still time.
Yep. All right. Okay, not quite ready for those, Rom. That's at the end after the sharing. Okay. All right. Jackie, you had a comment or have an observation.
I have a question. Thank you, Eric and Jessica. So my question, as you all talk about the book, it seemed like you got together, you put this book together, you wrote it. Can you talk about the process and the time and what that was like, and actually from when you started to when you actually published and got your book out there?
Yes. So
what that was like?
Thank you, Jackie. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. The book was published March 10th, 2022. That is actually when we received our copy. And like I said, we started when she was 10, and it was published when she was 19, 18. And so I just start putting pen to paper. And so that's what I always tell people. If you want to write, oh, how did you write a children's book? I put pen to paper. And it was quite it was easy and challenging at the same time. Easy because it's about my precious Jessica. And so I would write, revise, sent it out for some feedback, made more revisions, picked it up, put it down, and it really was quite the process. And one of the hardest parts was at the end. Once I got the pictures, completed the illustrations, and I was satisfied with that, I sat on it for another couple of years. And then in 2021, some friends said, hey, what about this book that you have that you've been sitting on? And so, and getting feedback from Jessica's working on it. And that's when it really came to fruition. But getting it to a actual book form was challenging, getting to that finish line. And so I'm very fortunate, and we're very blessed to have a great support group. And I was able to reach out to a Black publishing company here that got me over the finish line, and got us over the finish line because we did self-publish. Because a lot has happened in the publishing industry, and especially when you're talking about young adult and children's literature with main characters that are Black. Really, to have a publisher pick your book up and publish it, there is a lot. It's a lot to that. So many people now are self-publishing, and I believe that the increases that we have had in children's literature where we have Black main characters is because many people are self-publishing, and we have lots of tools and resources now to do that.
And thanks to Jessica and Erica and others who are on our Zoom call tonight. There are a number of authors who are self-published, and I am now compelled to write a piece on the gatekeeping that is part of the industry that keeps certain stories away from us. And it's interesting because it happens on so many levels, but that's another way of erasing and manifesting inhumanity also, is when you can't tell your story or get your story out there for others to see. And there's still this hierarchy of who published it and where is it published and how much marketing money do you have and how much promotion do you have. So the fact that you got it out is a testimony in and of itself. And we are encouraging people to get it. I imagine we can get it online. Jessica and well, I don't have
Yes.
to imagine that because I
Yes.
bought it. Okay.
Yeah, Jessica, you go ahead and talk because I've been doing a lot of talking.
Yes.
Sorry.
It can be purchased online through Barnes and Noble, as
Okay.
well as Amazon too. Amazon with purchases, we would love for anybody that does purchase it to leave a review, just to boost us up and to let us know what you guys think as well.
Yes, yes. And we're happy to say this is like a kickoff for us for the wonderful year we're going to have. We did take a little bit of a break last year. We do story time at Barnes and Noble. We did several of those last year. We weren't as visible and didn't market the book as much last year. We did take a break working on the essay, but Jessica was able to share it. You want to talk about your experience with she was recognized at Wild and Out. I don't know if you want to talk about it. Again, I feel like I'm talking a lot about how you shared it with Wild and Out. You were recognized.
Recently at an event, I do forget which one, but I was recognized at Wild and Out for being an incredible woman. from Nick Cannon. I did have the opportunity to leave a copy with his aunt as well as his father as well. As well as be able to enjoy the show as well. So
Yeah, well, bravo and congratulations to you,
thank you.
Thank
your
you. Thank you
mom,
so
and that
much.
incredible team, and persistence and resilience.
So,
Thank you for that story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So, Jessica and Erica will hang out a little bit, but we did open up an opportunity for people to share. And I'd love to know, Chris, if Christine, if because I know we've got another Chris on here. Christine, if anybody has decided to share, and we might have that person uh, start the share.
Yes, the first person is Liz Athens.
Okay, and our shares are 2 to 3 minutes, and we do have a timer. And then if we have more time, we'll go back. All right, Liz Athens.
Hi there,
Come on down. You're on the
Hi there.
Price is Right.
Hi there, everybody. I just want to thank the Project Humanities crew for scheduling this. Never has there been a better time for me to feel part of a community. So it's just great to be here. So I was a child of the 70s. I grew up with Free to Be You and Me, which was a collaboration by Marlo Thomas and a bunch of her friends. And then in 1987, they came out with another one called Free to Be a Family. And it was the same sort of thing, sort of small stories. This one, the subtitle is A Book About All Kinds of Belonging. And there's wonderful, diverse authors. There's some short stories about a whole bunch of things. The one I wanted to talk about was a story by an author named Sarah Durkee, who wrote a story called The Day Dad Made Toast. And it was a kind of story of a traditional family, a mother and a father and some children. And it was Saturday. And the father sort of got out of bed and said, I'm going to make toast today. And it's going to be the greatest thing ever. And everyone got excited. But the mom, who also works full time like the father did, was doing all the other things that moms do. So laundry, and she was doing stuff in the backyard and on the phone. And so it would go back and forth between what the mom was doing and what the dad was doing. And, you know, it was going to be dad's special cinnamon toast, and the kids were all excited about it. And so when they all sat down, the youngest child said, why are we making such a big deal about dad making toast when mom does all of this other stuff? And there was sort of a little discussion at the table about the importance of really understanding the very, very hard work that moms do. And, you know, and this was written in 87 when we had, you know, women in the workforce as much as men, plus they were doing all of the same, they were doing most of the work at home. And that's what it was like. It felt like real representation for me, because that's what it was like in my family. So I really like that. I think that it really fits around respect and self-reflection. And just a shout out for another one that was written in here by Whoopi Goldberg called Doris Knows Everything. And it was about a girl named Doris telling the protagonist of the story what it was like to go to the welfare office. And she said that it was a terrible place and everyone was mean and it was dirty and all that. And then the girl who's telling the story went in, and, you know, that's not what it was like at all. They got to talk to nice people and they got to get help. And then the last line is, I guess Doris doesn't know everything. So I really love this book. I think it's very helpful to start critical conversations with children. So I just thank you for letting me share, and I hope I didn't talk too much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to make sure that we put these in a list of stuff to read, so that when we're feeling really overwhelmed by all the stuff that's going in the world that we can't control, what we can do is pick up a book like Reading Rainbow says. It's in a book. And a book has saved people. Remember, the reason that books are being banned is because people don't always want us to know histories and things that save people. So here's another little, you know, people ask for, give me a suggestion. We're going to give you suggestions based on what we are offering here tonight. Thank you, Liz, for sharing that. Next up, Chris.
Next
Dean?
up is Lupita.
Lupita.
Hello, everyone. So, I brought this. It's a it's a children's book that I've been reading to my 6-year-old son.
Hmm.
It's called The Kissing Hand. Since he started first day of school, since he started 3. This book is, yes, it is about it's it's about a mother raccoon that kisses her son's hand and has him, wrap it in and remember it. He's scared to go to school to remember it, and that she will always be with him. But the story goes, before the son leaves, um, the son kisses the mother's hand and gives, and tells her, don't forget, I will be with you as well. And with the story, as my son was 3, he realized, though I more dawned onto him because I know he was nervous of going to school, but in the book you realize that he's like, you know, the son kissed her hand because the mommy's nervous too. And
Mm.
so this book taught me that, 3-year-olds can feel compassion and can feel the emotion of even the adults being nervous. And it also made me self-reflect on myself, that as much as I was doting on him being nervous, I maybe didn't realize how much I was nervous as
Mm.
well. And I felt that I could, even though I felt that he was 3 years old and maybe not be able to understand, I wanted to hide my nervousness. I now feel that it's important to share, with your children, that at times, maybe when you're scared, or if there is emotions that you may think that they might not be able to handle, but sometimes they're ready. They can be definitely teaching lessons and something to share
Thank
during
you.
difficult times. So
I love that nod toward modeling, because sometimes we're modeling in intentional ways, and then other times we may be modeling in ways that we're not even aware of, and that can be just as problematic. So thank you for sharing that. Yes. How old is your little boy? 6 now?
no, he's 6. Yes.
Yeah, he's 6, right? I love how, keep in mind that children aren't writing these books. The adults are writing the books. And so who we are as adults, we sort of get that into the children, and they read it and we hear it, but it really becomes a reflection of who we are. And I think when you have something that shows that the parents, the grown-ups, are benefiting from the children's books as much as the children's books, I think that's what you demonstrate to me too, is these are important to us. So that's why I said, don't feel embarrassed. Go pick up a picture book, read it, and be reminded of the humanity that is possible. Okay. I also want to take this time to say, sometimes we think of childhood as innocence, and we sort of throw these cliches around, but I also reminded you at the beginning that not every childhood had this kind of innocence. And if we talk about the Ruby Bridges, or we talk about Emmett Till, we talk about the young girls in the Birmingham bombing, that innocence was denied them. So we want to acknowledge, systems of privilege that go with how we define and construct childhood as well. So both of those things can coexist. All right. Christine, who's next?
Cheryl.
Cheryl K. Hi, Cheryl. You got to take your mute off, Cheryl.
Okay,
There we go.
it's very nice to meet you, Neil.
Ditto.
And Carol, I see Carol Gordon too. Nice
Yes.
to meet you too. So thank you, Neil, so much for letting me know about this. This is really cool, especially today, for many reasons. So as Neil knows, I have a pretty big children's book collection, um, and a pretty unique genre too. But so I kind of brought 2 examples, but I'll share one, and then if I'm out of time, that's cool. The first one that I brought is really like one of my favorite books in my collection, and it's called Heather Has Two Mommies, written by Leslie Ann Newman. And it's really interesting, Erica and Jessica, because when she published in 1989, she self-published.
Mm.
Like nobody would touch this book. So, and it's amazing because today, like if you look up Heather Has Two Mommies, it's won like every award, you know, Caldecott, whatever. She just had her there was an anniversary edition, and she actually sent me this one, and I know Leslie and Newman also. But so I just really wanted to read just one page from the book. I mean, it's about a young girl who goes to school, and you know, of course, 99% of everybody in her class has a mommy and a daddy, but there are some different families, and she has two mommies. And you know, she's in that situation where, you know, they say draw a picture of your family or Father's Day or whatever, and so she's really ostracized because she has two mommies. And the book goes on to explain how not every family is a mom and a dad. You know, there's families that are a mom and a grandma, and there's families that are two daddies, and there's just all kinds of families. And it's this is sort of like one of the last pages. Molly's the teacher, and it says Molly hangs up all the pictures and everyone looks at them. It doesn't matter how many mommies or how many daddies your family has, Molly says to the children. It doesn't matter if your family has sisters or brothers or cousins or grandmothers or grandfathers or uncles or aunts. Each family is special. The most important thing about a family is that all people in it love each other.
Mm.
And Pisces, and I'm getting like all emotional. But it just, you know, what really amazes me is like we're in 2024 and this is still like such a relevant message. Um, so I wanted to share that. And I'm probably out of time, but
Yeah.
next time I'll come back and I'll share the other parts of
Well,
my
put it in the chat. Put the other one in the chat.
Okay.
Well, and here's what's interesting about your book. It is likely to be banned. So in public schools, because anything that's LGBTQ or about race, in fact, some of the MLK books are being banned. So that's what I'm saying. This is an interesting moment where there's the best and the worst, but being banned doesn't mean you don't have access to read it though, because people are reading banned books. And everything that I teach in my African American literature class is on that banned list. Okay. So yes. So put the other book in the chat, and then somebody may, I see people connecting with the books that are coming up. So thank you
Okay.
for sharing that and for the good work that you're doing to help promote those other books too that demonstrate the inhumanity. You know, the 10 little N-word boys and girls, and the other ones, Little Black Sambo, and all those ones that people have romanticized and held on to that should have been banned, but were cute and adorable. We are challenging that notion right now with this counter narrative. All right. Who's next?
Angela.
Angela.
Angela had a picture she wanted to
Hi,
share.
Angela. Yes, because yeah, you didn't have to bring a book. You could set a story. Hi, Angela.
Um, could you share the picture?
I think you have sharing capability.
Oh. Um, please wait a minute. Can you see the picture?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Oh, so I'm joining from South Korea. But I used to live in Hong Kong. So as a child, during Chinese lessons, I would learn about Chinese proverbs, and there was a proverb about this story. This is like a very famous story, and I think it's from the Buddhist text, and it's about blind. There were like blind men, and they were touching the elephant, and each had a description about the elephant, but it's all different. So I believe that it teaches us about self-reflection and respect. So about respecting each other's opinions and about how truth can be relative. You know, everyone has different perspectives. So, and it also teaches us to open our mind to new ideas. So I think this story really opens our minds to the world and other ideas as well.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I love that. Images and, it's pictures with the words, but I like that because sometimes we think our truth is the only truth or my truth is the only truth. So thank you for those possibilities. Christine?
Yes, the next one up is Marlena Patrice.
Hi, Marlena.
Good evening, everybody. Happy MLK Day. Now, I took a different approach. I went back into my own childhood, and I do read children's literature still, and I have utilized it in the classroom. I was a teacher many years, and what I want to say is some of the books that my parents read from, they're gone. But I do have this old book. Um, I think a neighbor gave it to me. I don't know, but it has all the classics in it: Red Riding Hood and all that stuff. Um, and I will say, right, none of these stories are written by Black people, people of color, and so on. But this was our way of life at the time.
Mhm.
So Aesop's fables, Grimm's fairy tales, those are the stories I grew up with. And many lessons, obviously, in Aesop's fables. I remember even cartoons. I think it was Rocky and Bullwinkle. They used to do Aesop fables on that show. So we got it through reading and also through television, some of these stories. And one of the stories I remember, it's very short: The Man, the Boy, and the Donkey. Does anybody in the audience remember that story or have heard of it? Okay.
Yeah, Liz has. Who else has? Yep. Raise your
Okay.
hand if you've read it or heard of it. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
So
Jackie. Okay.
so that was a story that kind of resonated for me. And I could say I can still relate to it because we're inundated with people and their opinions about what we should and should not do. I'm, past 50, but I'm still dealing with people trying to tell me what to do. And
Mm,
so, so it's universal.
mhm.
You have the father, the son, and of course the donkey, he can't talk, but I'm sure if he could have talked, he would have had a lot to say about what was going on too. Because we know at the end he ends up uh, drowning.
Mm,
And I'm not going to spoil it for
okay.
people in terms of what transpires.
Okay.
But initially, the father is on the donkey. And then by the end, the donkey is dead.
Mm,
So let's take from that, as I said, that you have to be true to yourself, that we're inundated with all kinds of information now. There's going to be no fact checking anymore, but we have to, rely upon ourselves more so, is also a takeaway that we can't just, uh, you know, sit around listening to other people swaying us. And I'm sure there will be plenty more of that with this administration coming in, that we have to be intelligent enough to trust ourselves and honor what we believe is right and not be talked into things which will ultimately hurt us and hurt others, and even, you know, the animals. So we all have to be vigilant about protection. And I just want to mention one of the, you know, people of color books, which I love, Tar Beach. And we know these books by Faith Ringgold. Her book is illustrated by her quilting and the text itself. So there's another element, you know, the artist, who's the illustrator. We haven't really talked about that, but I admire children's books because it celebrates not only the words, but the illustrations as well. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for bringing that up,
Here.
because so many of those books that Cheryl and I collect in our Black Americana are books that were these little, you know, books enough to be held in your hand, not necessarily for adults to read. I'll pull one out. But they were full of these minstrel images. And the little black kids were drawn just as black faced as the adults with the red lips. And then you'd get books like, and these were by white authors who were creating a certain narrative that aligned with the dolls that were also the black faced dolls, and the topsy turvy dolls, where the top was the mammy and the other side was the enslaved woman. So this whole notion of childhood stories was not just in the books, but also in the artifact. You know, children's faces were also on the commercial items, you know, to sell. I'm thinking of the Gold Dust twins who were cleaning up spick and span things. They were all part of that minstrel tradition, the blackface tradition. So children, particularly black children, have been part of that. And we can also say indigenous children and others have been part of that kind of, you know, manifestation of what we now is the illusion of whiteness as superior, or white supremacy, or systemic racism, those words that you can't even say in Texas now. So these things that we're talking about are actually not just about children and childhood, but they intersect for me seamlessly into who we are and how we are as adults. So thanks for mentioning those pictures, because those pictures sometimes are horrific. And even if we go back to the Dick and Jane books, I teach mostly white students at a PWI. When I ask the students to tell me what they see, the students will see family, you know, the father, mother, Dick and Jane, they'll see the dogs, but my white students rarely see that the characters are actually white. And that in and of itself is a lesson when people have been so centered that they automatically assume that everybody's there and not noticing who's left out. So those lessons can come in many, many forms. So thank you for reminding us about the pictures. All right, who's next? Thank you. Christine?
Dana had mentioned in the chat 2 books, so I wasn't sure if she wanted to share them or not.
Okay. Which 2 books?
Not sure.
Which 2 books?
I'm looking.
Okay. Okay. And I'm grabbing my little books that I can show also.
The book she mentioned, that Dana mentioned, was Pretty Brown Face, by
Okay.
Andrea and Brian Pickney.
Oh, okay. Yes, they are wonderful illustrators too. I don't know if the and what was the other one?
Sorry, it was 1 book. Sorry.
Okay.
It was
I
1 book.
don't know if Carol Livia is Professor Carol Livia on the line. Carol Livia was joining us early. Uh, um, Carol Livia is the author of Nappy Hair. That's the book that I talked about that was so controversial in 1997. It's been banned multiple times. And she talks very specifically, this is hard when I'm blurred. I'm going to unblur it so you can see it. Talks about how this was such a travesty in many ways. It's a book that was written about her autobiographically and her family at a picnic, and they're sort of making fun of her hair because she's a brown girl with nappy hair. Now they're embracing nappy, not making fun of it, but because the book was written in dialect, there were black people who were upset about it, namely, Maya Angelou and others who are all about respectability politics. But what Cara Olivia says is that the illustrator didn't really know how to illustrate black people characters. And so at one point, the she's looking at the hands of the main character, and all the characters' hands are brown on the inside. Nobody's hands are the same color on the inside as they're on the outside. So those little details matter. And in her case, she was saying she never really had much control over who the author was. And I mentioned earlier, we talk about the narratives, but we also talk about these images. This is where we started seeing the inhumanity, because these were children. I'm telling you, that little black Sambo is way, 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 way popular. And people still romanticize that, even though that little boy is being threatened by tigers. And this one is one that really is quite eye-opening. The 10 little N-word boys and girls, and one by one, they disappear quite violently. So when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, just pull up some of these books, because the lesson is in a book. And these books, always amazed at the size of them, which can be held very easily in a child's hand. So even if that child can't read, they can look at the pictures. So what about the inhumanity? Are we recognizing we're perpetuating that? All right. Who's next on the sharing list?
Dana's actually hand raised, so
David, what?
Dana is.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Dana, Dr. Lester.
Dr. Dana Harmon, yes. All right, Dr. Dana.
Just want to make a quick comment. Sorry I'm not on camera, but I'm eating dinner. But the Pretty Brown Face is one book that one of my nieces, I have 5 nieces, so 5 beautiful Black girls, that my youngest niece, who is now 8, loved and enjoyed. And she would be so happy just to see her face light up when she opened up the book and was like, my pretty brown face. And even she's still that way now at 8 years old. But a big part of that is who my family is. We've always affirmed, I mean, I have 2 sisters, including myself, but my parents, especially my mother, always affirmed her daughters to be pretty brown girls and to understand what it means to be a Black girl. And I grew up in Tuskegee, so I also got that reinforcement and not on my home, but also in school. And that being that none of my nieces ever met their grandmother, we carry that on and always affirm to them that they are pretty brown girls who will grow to be pretty brown women. The other book that I really enjoyed that my nieces liked was Dream Big, Little One. And it's about it's about bold Black women in Black history. And so many of my nieces grew up not around Black people like I did. And so we had to take it upon ourselves as parents and aunties to share with them that you can grow and be whoever you are, because that's how we were raised growing up in Tuskegee, and they needed to know that. And 2 of them, well, one is at HBCU at Howard, and she said that had she not gone to an HBCU, she doesn't think she would have grown as a young Black woman. So just continuing that legacy and the importance of seeing images that look like you. When I grew up in the 70s, primarily, we didn't have books like my nieces did, but my mother, as Dr. Nestor knows, my mother was an African-American literature professor and things like that. But in our home, we had African art. And my parents were very particular about dolls. We did not have white dolls, but even the Black dolls that we had, my parents are very particular of what those dolls looked like and what images we were to see on TV or not on top, you know, talking about the big lips and things that Dr. Lester was referring to, we were not exposed to that. And if we were, we had sit down conversations as a family in the 70s and 80s about what that meant historically. So I just wanted to share that. But the pretty brown face, when I was listening to Jessica and Erica, made me just think about that, and that how your face is still beautiful. So I wanted to share.
Well, and that validation is really, really important. I'm thinking about that with the Sweet Honey and the Rock. There were no mirrors in my Nana's house, and the beauty that I saw was in her eyes. And that is a really interesting picture book, but it also reminds me of the Pat the Bunny book. How many of you remember Pat the Bunny book? And you go through and it has all these textures, and the version that I saw, which is the original, has the little white kid with the blonde hair. There's a boy and a girl. The boy's taller than the girl, so that's sort of that traditional father, mother, Dick and Jane structure there. But I'm remembering at one point they're looking in a mirror and they're saying something to the effect of, "Oh, what do you look like?" And I'm thinking, wow, for that child who is not white, how is that resonating with that child when they're looking in that little book mirror, but all the children in there don't look like them? And then, of course, that translates to me when I'm, trying to teach Madonna and Vogue. Of course, I know people who haven't been born, people who just been born in the last 20 years have no idea what that was all about. But Madonna gives us that gaslighting, that beauty is where you find it. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white or a boy and a girl. And we know that's not true. We know that's not true. And yet, if beauty is where you find it, why does she start listing all these old white Hollywood actors? Greta Garbo, Marilyn Monroe, Dietrich, and thank goodness for Beyonce's clapback in the Queen's remix, where she then lists these black women. So representation matters. But not just representation, but diverse perspectives, belonging, and that sense of validation that comes from within the families, or can come from within the family, and also from the surrounding communities. All right, who's next? Thank you, Dr. Dana. We're looking forward to co-facilitating with you in a couple of weeks on joy and justice. Joy and justice, I think, is what we're talking about, right, Dr. Dana? Oh, she's eating now.
Yes, yes, I believe so. Yes, you caught me. You
Right.
got
Right.
I'm being
Okay.
joyful, eat my spaghetti.
Yes, she's nodding her head. Yes, yes, joy and justice. So let's not forget joy now. In the midst of all this other stuff, let's not remember that joy is radical. And this, for many of us, is joyous. I hope that you saw at the beginning of this, for those who came into the room a little bit before we started, we had some one of our Yash, one of our student workers, put together a video montage of children's theme songs. And those, as we were thinking about in the class, brought back such memories. Notice they were not all from the US. And it was everything from Barney to Rugrats to Romper Room to all of those. Those are moments that we can, if we can remember that joy, I think we can sort of get through some of these moments. It doesn't mean that all the bad, evil, corruption stuff is going to go away, but it reminds us that we have some control over our lives in this moment. And I think that's one of the impetus behind this education, is we can do our service in the moment, in the morning, but also let's have some education pieces. All right, anybody else on the sharing list?
Yes. Rita had a song that
Okay.
they were thinking of.
Okay, Rita? Is Rita going to sing it, or is Rita going to tell us about it? Okay, we need you to unmute, Rita. We need you to unmute. Rita, can someone unmute Rita, please? Rita, do you know how to unmute your yeah, there we
I
go.
got it. I
There we
got it. Sorry, I just couldn't find it. Yes, I don't know if Christine can play the song on 1.30, a minute and 30, so that you don't have to hear the whole thing. And thank you so much for having me and giving me this time. I am just here visiting my aunt, who is a lawyer who used to be very active. I come from a very collective culture, and now it's our turn to give back, right? So that song actually relates to that. It is, can you play that, or is better if I just talk?
Why don't you tell us about the song, and then we'll make sure we find the link for it, okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I put it there. So
Okay.
the song is about some little pigs that are going to bed, and one dreams to be a king, and that he got his wishes fulfilled. The other one is a sailor, and when he embarks, falls off the bed and cries. But the little one, it's a very polite and courteous pig that his or her dream is to help mom, so to help mom, to relieve mom from all her duties, right? And I think that spoke to me since I was a very young kid. I felt like I was the little pig, and I identified with it. The funny thing is that one of my mom's brothers was the one who used to play in the guitar that song to us when my dad was away. Uh, Again, part of the collective um, culture. And I think that that guided my life in the sense of helping and being compassionate. But when I had my son, I fell in love with this book from Robert Munch, I Will Love You Forever.
Mm.
I love that book. And you know what? I think the main thing that he learned from that book was unconditional love. No matter what he did, he had to be very honest, and he knew that he would be loved whatever, no matter what. And he grew up to be the kindest human being I have met.
Mm.
He has passed since then, but sorry.
Yeah. This is the
Sorry.
book, right? This is I Love You Forever?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I think both the song and the in that book talks to me about kindness and compassion, and sharing and caring for others, and being that's part of the family and the community at large. Caring for others, being compassionate, and being there, just being there. So
Thank
that's
you.
my sharing.
Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody know the song that Rita is referencing?
Yes,
No. What's the
I
name of the
do.
song again? Wait, who said yes?
The song in the book?
Los Tres Cochinitos. The book, well, it's the little pigs.
The
And the
Little
book
Pig.
is I Will Love You Forever
Yeah.
from Robert Munch.
Yes. This is the book.
The song in the book.
This is the book. The song is not in the book. They're two different things.
Yes, two different
Yeah.
things. I
Yes.
just
Okay.
couldn't, I
Right.
could talk about 100 books, but I
Yes.
just don't do
Is the book in English? I'm not the book. Is the song in English?
I translated it in the document I shared.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll make
So
sure that everybody.
I translated it and I put the link to the song.
Excellent. Thank you. We will make sure that we get to share that. I don't know, is anybody from our team able to share some part of that? Since all of our team have access to the chat?
Hi, Rita. Did you say the song was Los Tres Cochinitos?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's on YouTube, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I put it in. Did you receive the document, Christine? I put it, I can see it in everyone. I
Yeah.
shared it to everyone, and the
You did,
song is there.
Yeah, it was there, but unfortunately it took me to Gmail and it didn't let me in.
Nayeli,
So
are you
I
able
wasn't
to
Oh,
able
see
to
I'm
it
see
on
the
so
YouTube?
link.
sorry.
That's okay.
So it's called Los Tres Cochinitos. I can try a different way. What I will do is I will copy the lyrics and post them in the chat.
And we will comb the chat and make sure that we share that. All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Rita. All right. Is there someone
Okay.
else who brought something to share?
Dr. eBay said he just finished a book.
Okay. Dr. eBay.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dr. Lester. This book, I've just one of your students sent it to me a couple of weeks ago, but I just read it. It's called I don't know if you can see it.
Mm-hmm. The Legend of Moko?
Yeah. So it's basically from what I gathered, it's an African parent that lives in America. That live in America. So their little daughter was trying to introduce their, I say, African culture to her friends, but they were kind of dismissive. So it's all about self-reflection. So she ended up somehow consulting her ancestors. So through her ancestors, she gained her self-respect back. And the book was basically teaching her how she gained the power back, but she got a little intoxicated with the power. And in the process of getting intoxicated with the power, she started abusing the power. And
Yeah, hold on just a second. Natasha, could you please mute your mic, please? Thank you. Okay, eBay, sorry.
that's all right. So somehow her ancestors came back to her and told her, listen, we didn't give you this power to abuse it or to abuse it, to abuse the power. So she was able to go back and apologize to her friends how she should have used the power for good. So it seems like a very interesting book to read. And she talked about how her fellow African Americans were kind of laughing at her because she's an African. So there was a separation between the African Americans and her being an African. So they were dismissive. But somehow she gained her confidence or her self-esteem back by reaching back to her ancestors. I don't know if that makes sense. So basically, she's saying that what I learned from that book is don't abuse the power and always know who and whose you are. And that way you stay humble. That was what I gained from that book. Thank you.
A student sent that book to you?
Yeah, it's one of the ASU graduated I know many years ago, but she
Oh,
wrote
okay.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, got you. All right. Well, we'll make sure that we include that. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful lesson also, particularly if we want to talk about cultural connections and bridges that are not always there. So thank you. Next, Christine.
That was the last one that said that they want to share something, unless someone else has anything they'd like to share.
This is Jeanette Robinson, Neil.
Yes.
Okay. I'm on my phone because I had trouble getting on my computer. And one of the little books that I want to share, it's a paperback book by Evangeline Nichols, and it's When Leslie Wears a Crown. And it's a little girl that tells a story about her school friend, who is Leslie, who happens to dress in African American clothes all the time. And of course, when she dresses in her clothes, she always has a head wrap. And so the little girl talks about the other students in her class and the different clothes that they wear. But no matter what they wear, she likes it when Leslie wears a crown. Their librarian showed them pictures of different nationalities and the different headdresses and different countries. But no matter what, she goes back to the fact that she likes it when Leslie wears a crown. I did pull out a couple of Faith Ringo's book, and I pulled out I have Little Black Sambo, but you may know Sam and the Tigers.
Yep, by Julius Lester.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I've got many, many, many children's books, so I won't go any further. But I just wanted to share that one book in particular.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. We go way back. It's interesting to me that, I'm probably one of the few African American males studying children's literature. It tends to be the realm of women. It's interesting to me that we still relegate children's literature to sort of secondary to the adult literature. And I'm still not quite sure why we don't think very highly of children's books. In fact, because I do African American literature and culture, some of the adult writers that we know also wrote for children. I'm thinking of the books that Nikki Giovanni wrote for children, some of her poems. Maya Angelou took some of her poems, made them for children's books. Ntozake Shange, Toni Morrison wrote some children's books. They're not very, but she wrote some children's books. And I'm thinking of W.E.B. Du Bois, for example, with the Brownies book. So there are ways in which, adult authors have written children's books. And then I'm thinking of, Toni Morrison, who wrote The Bluest Eye, which is an adult book, but it's about a little black girl's experience of wanting to be white. So there are ways in which these worlds, the adult world and the children's world, are really not that disconnected. And so I'm hoping that we can sort of elevate and amplify those voices of children's experiences as they interconnect with adult experiences, especially in the politics. And we're thinking now, when we're talking about anti-critical race theory, remember that nonsense about critical race theory was about protecting the children, but not all children were being protected. It was just some children were being protected. And keep in mind that was at the K through 12 level, which is where books are being thrown out, being banned. So we have to make sure that these books are not banned, that people have access to these books, because I think it was, I want to say it's James Baldwin. I'll say it's James Baldwin. It's probably somebody else. You can fact check me on that. But I guess since people aren't fact checking these days, it really won't matter. Somebody said, the book that is banned is the book that saves somebody. So I don't subscribe to that, Rosalind. I'm just saying that's the attitude out there. I'm glad you got that, Rosalind. Right. So we need these books and we need people to continue to tell these stories. And I don't want to privilege books, because I know that I think one of you mentioned, I think it was you, Marlena, mentioned folk tales and the ways in which people told stories that were not necessarily stories that were written down, but stories that were passed down within families, stories that were passed down within communities. And some of those stories got written down and some of them didn't. I'm thinking of Anansi the spider, for example. I'm thinking of the signifying monkey, the Brer Rabbit ones. And I'm not talking about Uncle Remus. I'm talking about the black version of those that were really about survival and about strategies and about signifying and about all those things that children were subjected to as well. Went to a plantation in New Orleans last week, 2 weeks ago, last week, yes, and went to the only plantation and the whole notion of touring a plantation rubs me very oddly. But this one in particular is the only plantation in Louisiana that is rendered from the perspective of the enslaved people. And that plantation, called the Whitney Plantation, is very much about centering the experiences of those people who were enslaved. And so much of that was about children. And it talked about the children who died on the plantation. It talked about the children who were children themselves being forced to have children. So when we talk about humanity, when we talk about justice, we cannot and should not overlook the role that children played in these social movements, and that children continue to play in these ways in which we will deal with the current administration and what lies ahead for all of us in some way or another. Is there anybody else? Thank you, Jeanette, for sharing that. Is there anybody else who decided they felt moved by the spirit to share before we kind of wrap it up and put a little bow on this
Well,
and
I had
offer it to
signed
you
up
as a
at the
gift?
beginning. I
Jackie
signed up
has
to
her hand
share.
raised.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay,
Sorry. Oh,
okay. I heard multiple voices.
I'm
Who's
sorry. I was just saying Jackie has her hand raised. She's had it.
okay? Jackie.
Yeah. So initially, when I was with the assignment to look for something, I couldn't really think of anything in terms of children's books or things growing up, because in my experience, I grew up in Tucson with Dr. Banks, and she didn't like a lot of the books because they were not about us. So the first children's book that she had me write was about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. That was that's kind of boring. And at home, when it was like read something, it was like get your encyclopedia. But two things that did stand out for me was the Sneetches, that book, and that whole thing in terms of a message. I thought, as I'm hearing people, I'm going, well, that was something that stood out for me, because you have the stars and the bellies and just this concept of how we're always one-upping. And at some point it just get exhausting to keep one-upping. So why not just be who you are? So that one stood out for me. But more importantly, from a childhood perspective, when I go back to Dr. Banks, is that we were in a school, mostly it was Mexican and Black school. We had other students in there. It was segregated, but it really wasn't supposed to be. However, on demand, Dr. Banks would bring you on the stage or stop you in a hall, and you would have to recite, I am, your turn, you all. I am, oh, you all look at me. I am somebody, right? I am somebody. So on demand, you would have to know that. And she would say, when it gets to the part where it says, I am Black, you can be whatever you want to be. She said, insert whatever you want to insert, at any time. So we would all, you'd have to do that on demand. What was really interesting in that space is that when it came to, I am Black, and you get to insert whatever, the white kids, the Asian kids, everybody would say, I am Black, although they could say whatever they wanted to say within that space. So I think about that, and that was like a space of pride, because you would feel like, oh, they want to be like me, like us. So I was thinking about that, listening to everybody, and that's that feeling that I felt we got from that. So those are the two things I wanted to share.
I like that call and response, because most, I'll say most, although I haven't done a survey, many of the books that I've looked at over the years as a scholar of African American literature and culture, I don't write the books, but I study them. There are very few books that allow that kind of interaction and engagement. A lot of the books are passive, and I mean by that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but an adult will read it to a child. The book that I did in the mentioned earlier is The Nappy Hair. It has that call and response where the adult can read it, the child can read it, and they can improvise that sort of Black church tradition from the South that many people know about. And it really is a way of formatting that allows an engagement that can be just as effective for folks also. They could be silly, but I didn't say this earlier, but if you're talking about inhumanity, the white teacher who read this to her third graders in 1997 got death threats, as did the author Cara Olivia Horan for writing about nappy hair. The fact that she's trying to celebrate hair that is not straight, hair that is not silky, hair that is not Rapunzel's hair or any of the other Disney princesses, even Tiana, was somehow threatening to folks. And the fact that she had to change schools, this white teacher, because she taught it. Now, it was a little more complicated than that, because it is in dialect, and a non-Black teacher, non-brown teacher reading dialect can come across in a certain kind of way. But the death threats from parents, the death threats didn't come from the children, they came from the parents. So there's so much that's embedded in what we create for and what we present to children. And I think we've got a really good reading list from tonight. I am so happy that y'all joined me. Today was a hard day for many people. And it was very difficult to imagine that to celebrate Dr. King on a day where everything that seems the antithesis is also being celebrated was really, really overwhelming. And the fact that we didn't plan this on the inauguration day, we have done this for 5 or 6 years now. Every evening, there is an education program. And we don't just do it on children's books. We've done it on The Radical King, or a year ago, we did it on Dr. King and his economic policies. We've done banned books. We've done all kinds of things. So if you've got ideas for a year from now, because we will have survived 1 year, let's come together again and figure out how we can build and sustain and continue this community. I want to do 2 shout outs before we wrap it up. I want to say that Erica, Maxwell, and a couple of others on the line tonight are hosting the first Arizona Black Children's Book Week, which is a national event. It will be here in Phoenix the end of February, and February 23rd will be the launch, and then the March 2nd will be the culmination. It will be in person. Maybe we'll be able to have some kind of way to engage virtually, but right now it's in person, and it will be local children's book authors celebrating their books, promoting their books so that the stories continue. It will be held at the Grassroots bookstore and juice bar, which is Black owned in downtown Phoenix. And we'll have various authors coming in, sharing with audiences. And we hope that parents and children and community members come out so that, just take a look. It's in a book that we can be that reading rainbow that LeVar Burton talks about. I want to thank you again as we wrap it up. Project Humanities will be doing, I mentioned earlier with Dr. Dana, Joy and Justice. And if you have other suggestions that you want, I know that we've got other authors on the line. Put those in the chat. We'll make sure that those go out. But I want you to follow us on the regular socials. We mentioned LinkedIn. There's a code on your screen QR code that you can scan. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, so that you can follow what we're doing. All we're trying to do is to be better and to do better. We are not trying to save the world. We're trying to be self-reflective and look at how we are operating in our own lives and spaces. And here are the details of the next podcast club, because we like different formats. This will be virtual, so everybody on this line can join us when we talk just for an hour about joy and justice. And here's how it works. Our team chooses a podcast, and it's like a book club and a film club, and then you watch it on your own, and then we talk about it for an hour. And I can tell you, Joy and Justice has a lesson for everybody. And you can listen to the podcast while you're doing other stuff, so you don't have to sit down and read it or watch it. Just listen to it. But come and join us on Tuesday, February the 4th, just for an hour. Notice the time is 6 to 7 Mountain Standard Time, Arizona time, and it is virtual. So please, please, please sign up for it. I guarantee you will get something out of it. I've listened to the podcast, and I've already taken some notes about strategies. So we talked about children's books as one strategy. These will give you other strategies of how you can cope and how we can get through the next few trials and tribulations, in addition to however you're establishing and sustaining community. And then finally, I thank you again. A lot is going on. Thank you, Erica and Jessica, for hanging with us. That game is probably still on. Okay. And for those who want to, please fill out the feedback. We always want to know how you think and what you think, but please also consider taking that pledge again. The pledge is about a movement. It really is about reminding people that we can be better and also to be self-reflective. And I think this can happen for individuals as well as for organizations. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And then stay tuned for a follow-up resource email. The books that you mentioned in the chat, the books that you shared, we will put those in one communication so that you can have those as a resource, so that you don't just leave with a good experience, I hope, but you also leave with something concrete and a reading list. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We actually got you out 3 minutes early. So thank you, thank you, thank you all. And please, please, please take care of yourselves. We can do this. Just remember what we've tried to create tonight. We can do it again. And you'll also get the recording of it if you want to listen to it again. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I want my team to snap a picture of those people who are still here so you can turn your videos on so we can show that we actually did something in a space and we cared about children's books and stories that were both children's stories as well as adult stories that we remember as children. So, oh, look at all the people. This feels like Romper Room now. And I see Erica and I see Eric. I was always waiting for somebody to mention Neil, but they never, and if they mentioned it was Neil. Yeah, thank you for validating. All right, grab the picture of screen number 1 because we got another screen there. There's Elena, a former student. There's another author out there, Monique and Clotilde. And
Hi, Dr. Lester.
All right, tell us. You ready?
Yes.
All right, who's taking the picture on our team? 1, 2, 3.
I don't know how to bring the picture up.
How to bring what? You're already up. We see you, Carol.
Oh, you see me?
We see
Okay.
you. Yes, we
All
see
right.
you and all that brilliance and gorgeousness. Yes. All right.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Did you take the picture? Because we need to go to the.
I did. We're all good. I got both screens.
You got both. All right. Thank you. And please, 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 if you enjoyed the event, come back to our other event. And if you didn't enjoy anything, just keep it to yourselves. Okay. All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.